One scream. 23 minutes of missing footage. And the life of a quiet black man named Marcus Hayes is erased before sunrise. The world will call him a monster. His wife will lose her job. His daughter will learn what hashtags can do to a human soul. And somewhere behind the gates of a Buckhead mansion, a 19-year-old girl will practice her tears in a mirror until they look real enough to send an innocent man to die in prison. This is the true story of the night the truth almost lost. And the unbearable cost of the day it finally stood up. You think you know how far a lie can reach. You have no idea. Buckle in. This one is going to hurt. Before we dive in, I'd really appreciate it if you hit that like button and subscribed. It means the world and helps the channel grow. 2:17 a.m. The security camera feed from the east gate of the Harrington estate in Buckhead, Georgia, freezes on a single frame that will be played 10 million times in the next 48 hours. A black man in a Navy chauffeur's jacket is sprinting across the floodlit lawn, shoeless, one hand clutching the side of his face. Behind him, the pool house door hangs open. A girl's scream, thin, piercing, theatrical, cuts through the night and then abruptly stops, as if someone has pressed mute on the world. The timestamp burns white, 2 hours 17 minutes and 44 seconds. 23 seconds later every camera on the property goes black. Marcus Hayes had never spent a full night on the estate before. 9 years driving for Victor Harrington, 9 years of dawn pickups, red-eye flights, sitting in the idling Phantom outside emergency rooms while Victoria Harrington the elder fought another round of cancer, yet he had always gone home to Keisha and Alyssa when the family slept. Home was a 3-bedroom ranch in Lithonia with a mortgage that still made him sweat. But 2 nights ago Victor had flown to Singapore, Mrs. Harrington was in Switzerland dying quietly, and 19-year-old Victoria, the only child, the princess, the last living Harrington, had thrown one of her parties. "Just crash in the guest cottage," she'd said, pressing a tumbler of something gold into his hand. "Daddy hates when the cars sit empty in the drive. Besides, you look exhausted." Marcus had almost said no. Something in her eyes that night, too bright, too fixed, made the back of his neck itch. But he was 42, bone-tired, and the cottage had a bed softer than anything in his own house. He told himself one night wouldn't matter. He was wrong. At 2:43 a.m. the first Fulton County cruiser rolled up the Pebble Drive, lights painting the magnolias red and blue. Marcus woke to pounding on the cottage door. He opened it in boxers and confusion, hands already raised because that is what you do when white police appear at a black man's door before sunrise. Victoria Harrington stood barefoot on the path in an oversized Yale t-shirt, mascara rivers down porcelain cheeks. She was shaking so hard the officer had to hold her up. He locked me in the pool house," she sobbed into the lens of someone's iPhone. "He raped me. Oh God, he raped me." Marcus felt the words hit him like buckshot. "Ma'am," he started, voice cracking, "I was asleep." "Shut the fuck up," one cop snarled, spinning him, knee in his back, gravel biting skin. The cuffs were ice. Victoria looked straight at him while they dragged him past. For one heartbeat her eyes were dry, almost curious, like she was watching an experiment unfold. Then the tears came again, perfect and on cue. By 6 a.m. every major network led with it. CNN, tech billionaire Victor Harrington's daughter allegedly assaulted by longtime driver. Fox, 19-year-old heiress fights off attacker in terrifying ordeal. The Atlanta Journal-Constitution ran the frozen frame of Marcus running, captioned, "Fleeing the scene?" His booking photo looked demonic, eyes red from flash, lips split where a deputy tripped him into the wall. The headline writers didn't need to try hard. Keisha Hayes watched the television in her nightgown, coffee growing cold in her hand. Alyssa, 17 and furious, kept refreshing Twitter. Every few seconds a new hashtag bloomed. Hashtag justice for Victoria. Hashtag believe women. Hashtag hang the animal.
Alyssa screamed at the screen until her voice shredded. "That's my daddy. He reads me psalms when I can't sleep. He still calls me baby girl." Keisha couldn't speak. She just stared at the crawl. Semen found on victim's clothing. DNA pending. Inside the county jail, Marcus learned how loud silence can be. Men who had never spoken to him now hissed "baby raper" when he passed. A guard accidentally spilled bleach in his breakfast tray. The first night he didn't sleep. He sat on the edge of the bunk and tried to pray, but every word felt borrowed, like the jumpsuit on his back. His public defender, Rachel Park, showed up on day 3 smelling of courthouse coffee and despair. "They're fast-tracking the DNA," she said without greeting. "If it's yours, Marcus, we plead. 10 to life. If it's not, well, they'll say you wore a condom. Juries love rich little white girls." "It's not mine," he whispered. She looked at him a long time. "I hope you're right. Because right now the whole world thinks you're a monster." Victoria Harrington gave her first interview from the pastel fortress of her bedroom, surrounded by stuffed animals that cost more than Marcus's car. She spoke in the breathless register people use for tragedies and weddings. "I trusted him," she told the blonde anchor from Good Morning America. "He drove me to therapy when Mom was sick. I thought he was family." The anchor touched her arm. "What do you say to people who might doubt you?" Victoria lifted her chin, eyes swimming. "I hope they never have to know what this feels like." In the cottage at the jail, Marcus watched on the common room television. When she said family, something inside him broke cleanly in half. The first secret surfaced on day 8. A blogger no one took seriously posted a blurry still from a deleted Instagram story, Victoria at 1:12 a.m. laughing in the kitchen, doing shots with Trip Whitmore, son of Elias Whitmore, Victor's bitter rival in the cloud storage wars. Trip's hand was up her skirt, her tongue was in his ear. Timestamp clear as day. The post vanished within minutes, but screenshots live forever. Rachel Park brought Marcus the printout. "This kid Trip was so drunk he pissed himself by the pool. You see him at all that night?" Marcus closed his eyes, reconstructing. "I carried him to a guest room around midnight. He was singing Sweet Caroline off-key. Victoria told me to leave him on the bed fully dressed so his daddy wouldn't know how wasted he was." Rachel tapped the photo. "Then how does Trip Whitmore's semen end up on Victoria Harrington's panties?" The second secret was older, uglier. An ex-nanny sold a diary to the tabloids. Pages photocopied in Victoria's looping teenage cursive. "I watch Marcus when he washes the cars. The water runs down his forearms and I want to lick it off. Daddy says I'm too young to know what I want. Daddy is wrong. I dream about him holding me down. I wake up wet and ashamed and wet again." The pundits argued over whether obsession excused anything. Most decided it made the rape more believable. See? He knew she wanted him and took it. Keisha read the published pages and vomited in the kitchen sink. On day 14, Rosa Morales walked into the offices of the Georgia Justice Project clutching a rosary and a conscience that had kept her awake for 2 weeks. Rosa had been invisible for 8 years, cleaning toilets at 3 a.m. so the Harringtons never had to see her. She had a son in Mexico she hadn't touched since he was 4. Deportation was a guillotine over her neck. But she had seen. She told the investigators everything, Victoria dragging stumbling Trip toward the pool house at 2:05 a.m. The way Victoria looked back once toward the cottage where Marcus slept. How she emerged 10 minutes later, hair perfect, panties in her fist, and whispered to the darkness, I'm so sorry," except her face was calm. Then the scream. Practiced. Blood-curdling. Oscar-worthy. Rosa had recorded 30 seconds on her ancient phone from behind the oleander. The video was shaky, dark, but Victoria's silhouette was unmistakable as she smeared something between her legs and then hurled herself onto the chaise, ripping her own dress for effect. The DNA came back the same day Rosa's footage leaked. Trip Whitmore. 100%. Trip, nursing a 3-day hangover and the terror of his father's wrath, confirmed he'd had consensual, if half-remembered, sex with Victoria in the pool house at 1:45 a.m. He passed out immediately after. He woke up alone, zipped up, with no memory of anything else. Victoria's story collapsed like a house of cards in a hurricane. The Harrington lawyers tried to cauterize the wound. A press release at 4:12 a.m. Miss Harrington is a traumatized young woman who misremembered events in the shock of assault. We continue to pray for everyone involved. The internet smelled blood. They released Marcus on a Wednesday. No apology, no cameras, just a deputy sliding his plastic bag of belongings across the counter. Wallet, wedding ring, the street Christopher medal Alyssa had given him when she was 9. Outside, the sky was the color of dishwater. Rachel Park offered him a ride. He said he'd walk. He needed to feel the ground under his own feet. He walked 10 miles. People stared on the Marta, whispered behind hands. A white woman clutched her purse like he might rape it. When he reached his house, the windows were smashed. Nigger rapist had been spray-painted across the garage in dripping red.
Inside, the rooms were stripped bare. Keisha had taken the photos, the couch, even the slow cooker. A single note on the counter in her neat nurse's handwriting. "We can't live in your shadow anymore. I'm sorry. Don't look for us." Victor Harrington returned from Singapore the next day. He invited Marcus to the estate, to talk man to man. Marcus went because part of him still wanted someone to look him in the eye and say sorry. Victor poured 2 fingers of Pappy Van Winkle and slid an envelope across the desk. Inside, a check for $12 million. "Sign the NDA, Marcus. We all move on. You'll never have to work again." Marcus stared at the numbers until they blurred. "Your daughter destroyed my life," he said quietly. Victor didn't flinch. "My daughter is sick. She needs help, not prison. Think of your own little girl." Marcus stood. "I am." He tore the check once, twice, let the pieces snow onto the Persian rug. "I don't want your money," he said. "I want my name back." Victor's voice hardened. "You'll never get it. Not all of it. Some people will always wonder." Marcus walked out without another word. Victoria found him 3 days later. She was waiting outside the temporary motel room he'd rented under his cousin's name. She wore an oversized hoodie, no makeup, hair in a messy knot. She looked 15 instead of 19. The police had dropped the charges, but the court of public opinion still raged. Someone had leaked her address. She couldn't leave the estate without being screamed at. She sat on the curb and cried, real tears this time, snotty and ugly. "I didn't think they'd hurt you so bad," she whispered. I thought they'd just fire you. Scare you. I didn't know about the jail thing, the things they'd call you. I was scared of the video Trip took. Daddy said the Whitmores would ruin us if it got out. I'm only 19, Marcus." I panicked. He looked down at her for a long time. Every day in that cell he had imagined killing her. Imagined wrapping his hands, those strong dark hands she wrote poems about, around her throat. Now she was here, small and broken and human, and all he felt was exhaustion. "You practiced that scream in the mirror," he said. It wasn't a question. She nodded, ashamed. "You let them put me in a cage with men who wanted me dead." Another nod. "You took my family." Her shoulders shook harder. Marcus crouched so they were eye level. "I hope one day you wake up scared to close your eyes because you don't know what's waiting in the dark. I hope you feel even a quarter of what I felt. And I hope somebody chooses to forgive you anyway. Because I can't." He stood and walked away. She stayed on the curb until the sun went down. He didn't take the money, but the criminal case settlement was mandatory under Georgia law. 8 figures, non-discretionary, wired before he could refuse. The judge called it conscience money. Marcus gave half to Rosa Morales and her son, new names, new country, new life. A quarter went to the Innocence Project. The rest he put in a trust for Alyssa, wherever she was. Then he disappeared. 8 months later, a yellow school bus pulls up outside Jefferson Elementary in Asheville, North Carolina. The driver is a quiet man with a trimmed beard and kind eyes. The name on his license reads Michael Harris now, but the kids just call him Mr. Hayes because that's what the roster says and children don't question much. Every morning a tiny girl with braids and purple glasses climbs the steps and asks the same question, "Mr. Hayes, why do you look sad sometimes?" He used to dodge it. Now he answers, "I look sad because I lost some things that mattered a lot. But then I found new things. Like you." She beams and fights for the front seat. One spring afternoon the local news runs a human interest piece, beloved bus driver saves kindergarten class from runaway truck, throws himself in front of the bumper, breaks 3 ribs but every child walks away. In the hospital bed, bandaged and sore, he gets a visitor. Alyssa, taller, hair twisted in a grown-up bun, stands in the doorway holding a balloon that says "Get well soon, Daddy." Behind her, Keisha cries without sound. He can't speak past the lump in his throat. Alyssa crosses the room and lays her head on his chest like she did when she was 5. "I saw the video of you saving those kids," she whispers. "Mama said, that's my Marcus. That's the man I married." Keisha steps closer, eyes red. "We were wrong to leave. I was drowning and I dragged our baby with me. Can you ever? He reaches for her hand with the one that isn't broken. She takes it like it's salvation. That same week, 3 states south, Victoria Harrington checks into a facility in Arizona under a name no one recognizes. She tells the intake counselor she needs to learn how to live with what she's done. Every night she dreams of a man walking away from her on a motel curb, the strongest back she's ever seen, carrying the weight of her lie without looking back. She wakes up crying, and for the first time the tears are only for someone else. On the last day of school, the kids on bus 17 present Mr. Hayes with a hand-painted banner, "Thank you for keeping us safe." He hangs it in the cottage he rents now, small, clean, paid for with an honest paycheck. That night he sits on the porch with Keisha's head on his shoulder and Alyssa strumming a guitar inside, learning a new song. The North Carolina mountains are cool and quiet. Somewhere a whippoorwill calls. Marcus closes his eyes and finally, the scream that has lived in his head for 2 years fades into ordinary night noise. He is 43 years old, alive, and free. The truth stood up. And it was enough. Marcus Hayes never got his old name back completely. There are still corners of the internet where strangers swear he's guilty. But every morning at 6:42 a.m., a yellow bus rolls through the Blue Ridge mist, and 37 children wave at the man who once had everything taken from him, and who somehow still found room to give. He never pressed charges against the girl who stole 2 years of his life. He just drives. Because some people spend the rest of their days trying to outrun a lie. And some people decide the lie doesn't get to drive anymore. Marcus chose the wheel. And the truth? After all the screaming, after all the bleeding, rode shotgun. Quiet. Unshakable. Free.